Hi ladies and gents, my name is Thom Gibson, and today we are looking at 5 innovative ways that you can create positive classroom culture. The way that I view culture in a classroom is the mood or the vibe of that classroom. What are the things that are valued or not valued in that classroom? Creating an environment that has a positive classroom culture helps students connect with the content, helps students connect with their peers, and helps students connect with you, their teacher. And so these are 5 things that I've done in my classroom to help build positive classroom culture. The first thing you can do is ask different questions. When I first started teaching, generally after I taught a concept in any subject, I would say, does anyone have questions about this? The problem with saying, does anyone have questions about this, is there's almost this assumption that there really shouldn't be any questions, but I'm kind of checking just in case. So instead, I shifted to what questions do you have about this, showing that there is an expectation that there should be questions. And what I really like is I've heard other teachers take this even further and say, what are 2 questions that you have about this? And they wouldn't move on until at least 2 questions were asked about the concept. And so it builds a culture that questions are expected and gets rid of that apprehension about, I kind of want to answer this question, but I feel like it's kind of obvious and everyone else seems to get it, so I'm just not going to say anything. Other questions that I've asked are things like, can you share your thought process on this? Which is a lot more disarming than what is the correct answer for this problem, because it's like, oh, I don't know, what if I don't have the correct answer? But if it's, can you share your thought process? Well, I can share my thought process. That's easy. It may not be right, but here's what I think. The second thing you can do to foster a positive classroom culture is to do mindful breathing exercises. When I got to my current school 5 years ago, this was brand new to me, and I thought it was kind of weird at first because it's like, is this like yoga that we're doing at the beginning of class? I had never even heard of any schools that had done it before, but it's starting to take root in a lot of other schools. And so at our school, we call it centering, and we only spend about 1 to 2 minutes at the beginning of class doing it. And I tell my students that it is a practice of focus. They're taking their focus muscle and focusing on one thing, typically their breathing, and noticing when their focus wanders to other things and bringing it back to just paying attention to the breathing. So a typical centering exercise in my class, I tell the students to sit up tall in their chair and close their eyes. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you can just look down at your desk. I'll pause for a few moments before I give the next directive. And then I'll say, go ahead and take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and slowly breathe out your mouth. And I don't rush this. I let it be nice and slow, and I'll say things like, keep your focus on the actual sensation of breathing. Maybe you're noticing how the air feels on the tips of your nostrils and as it enters in through your nose, and then how it feels for your lungs to fill up, and then what it feels like to actually exhale that air out. And then I'll actually say, if you notice that your mind is wandering to other things, that's totally normal. Just bring it back to focusing on your breathing. And we'll take 3 to 5 breaths like that, and then I will bring their attention back to the room. There's several apps that do a really good job of this. If you're not sure exactly how to get started, you can either play the app in your class, or you can just do the app yourself and then lead the mindful activity in your class based on what you learned in the app. If students don't really want to participate, I tell them that's totally fine, but I don't want them making any faces at each other or doing anything that's distracting to other people. And so some students end up just sitting quietly during that time. It really helps when we're starting every class like that, and it's a part of our entire school culture, so students are pretty used to it. So it may be a little bit harder to kind of get in the rhythm of doing it if you're the only person at your school doing it. But starting class on that kind of tranquil and centered and calm note has been really positive for my classroom. I'll go ahead and link to some apps and some other resources to help you get started if you're interested in doing that. And let me know if you want me to do a separate video on more of the details of the mindfulness practices. Third thing you can do to help build positive classroom culture is High Five Friday. You stand at the door on Fridays and you say, Happy High Five Friday to everybody that walks by. It's just a fun thing to do on a Friday that gets you some kind of contact with students. And even if kids are too cool for a high five, you gotta be like, come on, I'm gonna chase you down until you give me that high five. It's simple, it's easy, it's fun, you can do it this week. And what's funny is the more you do it, the more students start expecting it, and they start coming up to you with High Five Friday, and that's always fun. The fourth thing you can do is start a class Instagram. And I know that some schools you may not do that, there's probably a ton of rules around it, but the reason I do it is that I think there's a lot of really awesome things going on in my class, and I would love to promote these students and these parents' Instagram feeds with awesome educational content of students solving problems or having great discussions. And it serves as a really good communication piece to the parents, and it can be a really positive thing. A few safety guidelines: if you can't show any faces of students, you can probably just take pictures of student work, or have a video where you're not showing any students' faces, but you're filming the work that they're actually doing it, and you can hear them explaining it in the background of what they're doing. My school has a list of people that cannot be photographed and put on any kind of media, either in or outside of the school social media. And so I keep that in mind, and I look at that at the beginning of the year and make sure not to include any of those students. Whenever I'm talking about a student, I only use their first initial. So if Robert's helping Steven with a math problem, I say R helps S with our division of mixed numbers examples. And more than anything, I think this helps model positive digital citizenship. This isn't my personal Instagram account, it's a class Instagram account. And students see how I actually handle myself online and what I say and the ways that I'm building people up through this Instagram in a positive way. It's not a private account, anyone can follow it, but I don't follow students with that account. So it's all more of a one-way kind of thing just going out. And so I know that's not possible in every district depending on your rules, but if it is, it might be something to consider. The fifth thing you can do to create a positive classroom culture is a weekly check-in. When I taught fifth grade in a large elementary school and I had the same kids all day, on Monday we spent the first 15 minutes of class just checking in and students sharing what they did over their weekend. We talked about how it was a time that we were really listening to the people that were talking and we weren't yelling over each other or anything like that. And I found that the students that typically had challenging behavior during those times, they were really just interested and wanted to listen to what their classmates did over the weekend and share what they did. And so just giving everyone that couple of minutes to check in and say how things were doing had a really big impact on our classroom culture. And now I teach middle school and have a homeroom advisory, and we have two different things that serve as sort of a weekly check-in. One day where we sit in a circle and we talk about our highs, our lows, and the things that we're looking forward to. There's a talking piece. Again, we say it's a listening activity. So honor the talking piece and only share when it's your turn. Something I do because students want to make connections like, oh, I saw that movie too. What did you think about this? We do one round where there's no talking unless you have the talking piece. After that, I say, does anyone have a connection or a question or thought about what someone else had shared? And then that one's a little bit more free for all group discussion kind of thing. And then we also have a weekly update where I send the students in my advisory an email that's kind of an update on me and how things are going with me. And it's a list of 5 to 7 questions. Some of them will be academic, some of them won't. It was just Thanksgiving last week, so I asked, what was the best part of your Thanksgiving break? What's your favorite Thanksgiving food? I threw in a question on if you had a major in something today, what would it be? And I included a link of college majors because a lot of students don't even know what all the college majors are. I told them, I'm reading a book right now where someone travels back in time. If you traveled back in time to a certain time period, what time period would you go to and why? And what would your role be? And just silly questions. And the key point with that is they don't just respond to that email and send it to me, but they include their parents in that weekly update email. So it's kind of this group communication thing that's not only about academics, but other fun things that it gives the opportunity for the kids to share. But sometimes that written communication is an opportunity for students to share who may not be the most vocal or talkative students, and they get to share things that they normally wouldn't share. So those are 5 things that I've done to help create positive classroom culture. Let me know if there are things that you do in your class that you really feel help create a good positive culture. Also, let me know if there's anything in this list that you would like to see a separate video devoted to just that and the logistics of how to make that happen in your classroom. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Thom Gibson. I hope you learned something today, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.